Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and today we're going to be talking about creativity and the value of creativity and how it relates to NFTs, the Metaverse, AI, machine learning, machine-generated art, etc., robots, all this stuff. I think this is a very, very important conversation to have, and I haven't seen a lot around this topic, so I think this is important to mention as we start to get into all this stuff with NFTs and all these digital and algorithmic and things that are aided by AI or use AI in some way. I think all of this sort of encompasses into this conversation. So I'm going to be diving into where I think we are at in how we value creativity and why this is so important going forward into this world of AI and machine learning and machine generated art and things like that. I'm going to be diving into all that in a moment after a quick word from my sponsor today. A big thank you and shout out to my sponsor Cake Wallet, which is an open source, non-custodial Bitcoin and Monero wallet that also has a built-in exchange. It's available on iOS and Android. All right, thanks again to my sponsor. So as we get into this conversation, I want to preface this with that I think NFTs and all this stuff is interesting and useful technology, but my big concern is the way that we're starting to look at how we value creativity. And I'll give you a good example of this. So with NFTs now, we've got NFTs that are actually created by artists. We've got plagiarized NFTs. We have NFTs that aren't really worth something, but like you were tricked essentially, like Logan Paul's Crypto Zoo, where they were saying they were designing all this great art, but it was really just Adobe Photoshop. It was Adobe stock footage that was just really lazily photoshopped together. So it was minimal effort. And the reason that that's so important is because the idea of being able to be creative in certain fields is being diminished, diluted, and they're finding ways to do this with there's a robot that can paint a painting, I believe it was in 30 seconds, and it is just as creative and a good a painting as if someone had painted it themselves. The difference is that the robot could do 1,000 a day, and it would be just as good as a person who could do 1 a day. Essentially meaning that if you can copy human creativity with algorithms, machine learning, robots, AI, etc., then there's really nothing left that the humans have to offer the world. And really, it's just AI and robots and everything will just lead the way, because the one thing that we still have to offer is creativity. Obviously, we could not outpace machines in science or math or a lot of these different things, right? But when it comes to creativity, the whole original idea, at least the way that I look at it, is that you value creativity in the effort and skill that it takes to complete the thing. Some people might look at a painting and say, that painting is good or bad just subjectively based on whether or not I like it. But if a robot can do 1 million a day, should that be valued highly? Or is that just like Walmart art, right? Just stuff that they just print onto a canvas. It's not really art, but it's cheap and you could throw it up in your house and it looks all right. That we understand is valued low because there's no effort in it. But if we start to value these low effort pieces of art or books or music or anything like that, we slowly degrade what it means to have creativity. And then we're kind of handing that off to robots if they can do the same thing, but 1,000 to 1,000,000x the output, right? If you could have one single art robot do the same amount of songs that all human artists could do in 1 year, but in a day, and they were just as, enjoyed and liked, there would be no reason to have any artists exist at all. You would just have this one robot or AI or machine just pumping out everything. And then whoever owns that robot basically controls the entirety of culture and pop music. And I have even started to dive into the fact that if that were the case, then you could generally control culture just based on what you have the robots producing. So that's a whole other problem that I haven't even really thought much about. The point of this video is more to talk about how we can't lose the idea of creativity from humans over to machines. And I'm seeing this being perpetuated by things like the metaverse and NFTs and all these kinds of stuff, because you've got people who will just create a pixelized version of themselves and then they'll sell it for a ton of money. That's extremely low effort. That's not creativity, right? There's even highly advanced programs now. A friend of mine was showing me, he paid $500 for this program that basically just generates art out of essentially nothing. It's very impressive. The art looks amazing. The problem is that, and you own the copyrights and everything, so you can sell that art. The problem is that there's no effort put into it. Now, the issue is that from the end user perspective, you can't tell. So we could easily slip into the reality where slowly but surely people are just buying up more ways to auto-generate art, and then that just becomes popular, and then there's no reason to have artists at all, because just a random coder can spin up a program, or just anyone can buy this program and spin it up and start mass producing art, thus devaluing all other art if it's so easy. Either we find some way to look at this and be like, okay, well, this is machine generated and this is human. I don't know if that would be the case or how we could actually do that. But if we can't do that, I honestly believe art won't matter anymore, because, again, it's the effort put into doing it. The reason that art is valued highly is because there was a specific technique, and it might have been invented by the artist. So it's a brand new technique, and it's completely novel and it's exclusive to that artist. And they have a specific way of painting, and all of that encompasses it to be worth like $100,000 to $1 million, $10 million painting, right? If you could do all of that in 5 seconds with no prior training, is that going to be valued the same? Is it people looking at that and saying that's so impressive, or are people just saying like, I like this picture? The concern that I have is if it's simply just, I like the way this looks, subjective interpretation, then we probably will lose out to machines, just because they'll have the distribution that we could never compete with eventually. And that's a huge issue, because it's not just art. It'll be music. It'll be books. It'll be literally everything you do see and consume in terms of content and art and culture. Culture has a much larger impact than we might think on how we think, essentially. And if this transition were to happen, which it really feels like it already is underway, and I'm struggling to find an actual solution to this, right? Because it's going to be impossible to tell the difference between human art and machine-generated art, and that's going to be the main problem. Because if it does just come down to your subjective what you like, we're going to lose out to AI and all this stuff going on. So I really just wanted to make this kind of like a PSA about where I think we're headed with things like the metaverse and NFTs and stuff. It's kind of dystopic, because if everything is able to just be generated by machines and AI and algorithms, then what that really means is the people who own the AI algorithms and the robots and everything are the ones who essentially control everything. And we're getting there very, very quickly. Everyone's getting hype about the metaverse. Everything will be in the metaverse. The robots will create everything that's in the metaverse, or the AI or whatever. It almost sounds like some weird, like anti technology conspiracy, but it's very obvious to see when you really think about it. It's like, yeah, if you can create art that is indistinguishable, then what's the point of, paying an artist a bunch of money to make art when you can just machine generate all of it, pay barely anything, and then sell it for mass profits? It's becoming less about the art being good even as well, and more so just who are you buying it from that has enough reputation that can be sold off of to maybe get a better price for the people investing in NFTs, etc. And it's not just NFTs, it's anything that can be digitally created or done in some way by machines. I'm not of the mind that oh, because of this, technology is evil and we should just hate technology. It's more so, how should we go about thinking about, or how should we go forward valuing creativity? It's more of a question of human values and what we are going to give value to. Because if we can kind of like collaboratively all agree on the idea that machine generated art should be valued significantly less, then I think there's some hope there. But you'd have a lot of people who would also argue the opposite, and they would say the code that creates that is art. And it's like, okay, well then I guess the only artists in the future are programmers. So, it becomes very subjective. It's like, what is art? Is it something that you can just program with zeros and ones? Or is there some sort of creativity that actually is important and needed to achieve that? I'm sure there's two camps, two sides to this, where you might have a lot of coders saying that is art and that's good enough. And you might have artists who agree or even disagree if they're using machine generated art themselves to make money. A lot of this just comes back down to the money, the control. It's kind of sad that even a conversation around art and creativity is going to come back down to, people controlling culture and influencing you in ways that are negative. Again, a lot of this sounds kind of like a little conspiratorial, but if you really think through it, it makes complete sense as to why losing creativity to machines, AI, etc., is going to be very detrimental for humans, specifically our culture and our cultural influences. Let me know what you guys think, though. This isn't like a technical thing or a criticism of Metaverse or NFTs, though I'm not a big fan anyways. This is more so about how we value creativity. So let me know. Do you agree? Do you think it's more about, is the art itself the only thing that matters? And is it good? Is it subjectively interesting to you, to the individual? Or is it more important about how we value how the art was created or what went into that? Is creativity derived from subjective interpretation? Is there something to be said about effort, about skill involved in and technique and things like that? What actually is creativity? How should we value it? And what do you think about all this stuff in like machine generated NFTs and stuff that's considered as art? Do you consider that art? Let me know all your answers to this stuff in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. And since you did, it would be fantastic if you could comment #1ham in the comments below. And that way I know that you watched to the very end. I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Sconcy Business, signing off. Cheers.